Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Seed Speaks. This is a video series brought to you by Seed World Group. My name is Rebecca Carmeli Peslak, and I am the digital media producer for Seed World Group. Today, we are talking about plant growing myths, true or false. Have you ever wondered if talking to plants makes them grow better, maybe stronger? Maybe you were curious if you could hear plants growing. Let's dive into that and more on today's episode of Seed Speaks. Today, I am joined by three experts to myth bust some common plant growing myths. Robin Davidson, research scientist at Lakeland College, Trevor Nisetvold, director of crop science for SGS Canada, and Lori Otway, research scientist for grain quality with FCDC. Robin, Trevor, and Lori, thank you so much for joining me today and bringing your expertise to Seed Speaks. Robin, could you briefly introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Hi, I'm Robin Davidson, and as Rebecca said, I am a research scientist with Lakeland College here in Alberta, and I've been working in pulse crops for probably about 20 years or so, that would definitely be my area of expertise. And when I'm not doing research, I am farming with my husband just outside of Red Deer, Alberta, where we have a 4,000-acre grain farm. So I'd like to try to link the research with the farming itself.
Thank you so much, Robin. Trevor, could you also introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Trevor Nisetvold, and I've been involved in various levels of testing in the agricultural industry, seed, grain, soil, tissue, this will be my 28th year. Grew up on a grain farm south of Lloydminster on the Alberta-Saskatchewan border, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion today.
Thank you so much, Trevor. And Lori, could you please also introduce yourself to our audience today?
Sure. My name is Lori Otway. I've been working in crop research this is my 31st year. So I work in grain quality for the Field Crop Development Center, and I assess all new varieties that we're developing for specific crop quality. So things like animal digestibility, human food nutrition, as well as brewing and malting. So when I'm not farming, I enjoy plants of all kinds, gardening, and my husband and I are also pedigreed seed growers in that we produce seed for other farmers. So I really enjoy looking at what I do at work come onto the farm.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lori. Okay, let's get into some myth busting for today. Clearly, you've all been involved in research for quite some time involving seeds and plants. What is the most common plant growing myth you hear maybe in your research? And Lori, do you want to kick this one off?
Sure. I think there's a lot of different myths that I hear out there. Something specifically related to what I do is I'm always surprised when I'm talking to somebody in the industry or even the general public that they don't know that there's different varieties of every individual crop. A lot of people think that, wheat is wheat, barley is barley. And in fact, there's a lot of different varieties that have different quality characteristics and grow in different ways. So you have a specific varieties for like animal feed or animal forage, and yet you can have a completely different one for brewing and malting. So yeah, I'm always surprised when they don't know that.
Totally. Thank you for sharing. Trevor, your most commonly heard plant growing myth.
Well, within our business, which is seed quality testing, one of the common myths that we do here, or one of the common misconceptions, I guess, is I've submitted two samples from the same lot of seed. Why aren't the results exactly the same? So I think this myth centers around the understanding of the use of statistics and the fact that, every sample is different to a certain degree. That being said, we do have a level of statistical tolerance that we have to follow. And of course, if we fall outside of that tolerance, it initiates a bunch of actions on our part. But we commonly hear that within our industry. Outside of our industry, I think that's a whole nother conversation. Is, we hear, I think the agricultural industry is working hard to educate itself outside of its own industry and bring our story maybe to more tables.
Great insight. There are definitely a plethora of myths that surround the agricultural industry as a whole. Robin, do you want to share a myth?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with what Trevor said in that it depends on the audience that I'm speaking with. If I'm talking to just the general public, I first have to explain to them what a pulse crop is. And usually when I say the word legume, they're like, oh, okay, I know what that is. So I usually, spend some time talking about what that is and how it's different from some of the other crops, and they usually have no idea. Within our industry, when I'm talking to farmers that are familiar with pulse crops and are either trying to get them onto their farm or have them on their farm and are interested in doing better, I always hear that, well, what is this like rhizobial stuff, and do I really need it? And so I explain to them that, there is a symbiotic relationship, and that's part of the reason why we grow pulses, and that they don't have to use it. It's okay. We can it's already naturally in the soil. So it's just, I think, a lot within the industry talking to producers about just how to grow them, because I don't know that they understand. I think that Lori probably has a little bit of the advantage that when you talk about wheat and barley, most people know what it is, but pulses, there's a lot they don't know. So I usually clear up a lot of misconceptions.
Thank you. Okay, so our first myth or fact, and Trevor, I will kick this one off with you. Organic agriculture is better than conventional agriculture.
So as a standalone statement, absolutely a myth. But as a statement in context, it may be better for some growers in some circumstances, and some may choose to go that way, and some do. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's roughly 2% or something. But there is a significant and growing organic industry within our agricultural industry. So those growers in particular, and their customers, have chosen, for whatever reason, that it's better for them. So I think in context, it could be true for certain circumstances, but as a standalone statement, absolutely a myth.
Thank you for your input. Robin, Lori, anything to add?
I would add that I think if you're asking better, you need to define better. Better for the environment, in some cases, absolutely. In other cases, maybe not so much. If you're talking about better overall, as in, is organic food healthier? Absolutely a myth. And if you're talking about better as better for like the whole world and humanity, I say absolutely a myth, because we would all starve to death. So I think if we define better and talk about, what does better mean? I think we can answer that question a bit more clearly. So.
Thank you, Robin. Lori?
I think they covered a lot of what I was going to add to that conversation, but I think a lot of the conversation and what people get about the organic industry is out there in the public domain, and a lot of it is not. It's not actually people in the agriculture industry that are pushing it so hard. I think people would be interested to know that it is a marketing choice, that most producers are glad that we have that opportunity to do organic farming, and like it was said earlier, farmers can choose to do that, and it might have a marketing advantage for them. But both conventional and organic have a lot of the same merits. Everybody is trying to produce more food for our populations. Everybody can guarantee that we're looking at soil health and sustainability for our systems, that we're trying to take care of the soil, the water, and the air. and that both systems also produce very safe food for the public. And I think that's one thing that, is so important to stress, is that what we produce on our farms goes out to our families as well as everybody else. So we want to make sure that we're doing the best we can.
Thank you for that insight, Lori. I am going to give my next myth or fact to you, actually. Singing or speaking nicely to plants helps them grow faster and stronger.
Okay. Well, I earlier admitted that I was a plant hoarder. So I have a lot of plants in my house, all different kinds. I'm unsure. I would like to say that it's a fact. So plants can respond to different frequencies. If you look at research papers, absolutely. You look at something like a Venus flytrap, and it triggers with just pollinator and different frequencies of insects that are coming near, and it can retract based on frequencies. So I read a paper once where it said that lower frequencies are more conducive to plant health. But one of the things, I think if you're walking around your house and you're talking, you're singing to your plants, you're more aware of what your plants are doing. So you can see if they need watering or if they have, some sort of issue. So I believe it's just the whole package, the caring for your plants that make them grow better, as well as the talking.
Awesome. I also admitted earlier that I do speak to my plants, so I'm glad to know that there might be some benefits to it. Robin, Trevor, anything else to add?
No, I don't think so. I'll definitely have to, as I admitted earlier, I have a hard time keeping plants alive in my house. Trevor and I talked about, or Trevor made comments about how, I work with plants all day. I'm not coming home and working with them at night. So I don't pay attention to my plants as much as Lori does. I don't water them probably like I should. And so caring for them as well. My plants would definitely do better in Lori's house.
Thank you for that. Trevor?
Yeah, I'll just add that human, plant, animal, no one wants to hear me sing. So that is the only thing I would have to add.
Robin, I'm going to kick this next myth or fact off with you. In agriculture, technology can replace humans.
Myth. Although I have to back that up by saying that there are definitely areas in agriculture where technology can help. Absolutely. There's no question. And as an agricultural industry, we are always focused on technological advances and how we can make our production better and our research better. So technology, I think, has a very strong place, and I think we need to keep following it. If not, we will definitely get left behind. So but will it replace humans? I think that's a myth. First of all, if you're using technology, you need a human to use it. And I am a very strong believer of boots on the ground. If you're working in the industry and if you're not walking your fields and looking for things that that the technology, let's say a drone, may not pick up, then you're going to miss things. And I'll use a specific example when you're looking for diseases of pulse crops. So if you're looking for a disease in peas, the diseases start at the bottom of the canopy and work their way up. So therefore, if you're just taking a drone through the field, you're not going to see the disease levels at the bottom of the canopy because the drone cannot fly through the canopy, if you know what I mean. So that is one example for sure. And there's other examples also kind of in the disease world where I spend a lot of my time, is like the root rots and some of the diseases that are affecting our crops. You can't see the roots with the drone. And sometimes the plants they look fine. They look very healthy. They seem to be doing well until you actually dig them up. So I would say definitely need to utilize technology. And I think it's very helpful and can make us better, but absolutely is not going to replace humans.
Thank you so much for that. I definitely heard the points about the drone, how maybe it can't see as closely as a human could. Lori, Trevor, Anything to add?
Well, looking at technology, when we're looking at the research, I agree with Robin. I mean, it's got a lot of advantages for looking at large numbers of plots and helping us understand what we're looking at. Sometimes I think with artificial intelligence, it might give us some insight and maybe a better tool for farmers in decision making. However, I think it is a myth. I think there will always need to be people on the ground, like Robin said, people looking after this equipment. And researchers and farmers need to be involved in developing those predictive models for the technology to make sure that it's really suitable for their operation and what they're doing. So I would say it was a myth.
And Trevor?
Yeah, I would agree with what's been said up to this point. I agree it's a myth. However, I would say, so within our business, we run labs, and there has been an increase in the utilization of technology, and it's accelerated with things like machine learning and image analysis and things like that. And I heard a good statement. I can't remember who did it, but it's not something I came up with or anything like that. But I don't think technology is not going to replace humans, but somebody using technology could. So I think it's really important that we not be afraid of it, that we embrace it. It in a lot of cases, we see in precision agriculture and there's any number of instances or examples in our industry. The benefits need to be clear, and it's generally somebody's going to be sitting at the top of the pyramid making those decisions. So we know it can give more information. It can provide more information that we can't discern. If we take a look at image analysis, we're looking at images that the human eyes cannot see. We don't view in those wavelengths. So this is what this is it's more information, right? And generally what we see from, when we start talking about technology, we also include automation and things like that. Well, if a job is dull and dirty, why wouldn't you? This is a positive. So why wouldn't you want to replace, the jobs that nobody wants to do with technology? It's a myth it's going to replace humans, but it's a net positive for sure.
Thank you. My next myth is a little bit more unconventional. So Trevor, I'm going to kick this one off with you. So this is something I've always heard about corn, and growing up, my great uncle had a dairy farm where he produced corn, and everybody always used to say if the weather was right in July, you could hear the corn growing. So is it a myth or a fact that you can hear plants grow?
Well, I've been in fields, not as much as my colleagues on this on this, but I've been in fields, and it's absolutely true. I mean, and especially under stress, if you're in a potted crop, you can hear the crackling literally. And it's not necessarily an indicator of anything positive that's happening. It might be drying out, but you can hear it for sure.
Thanks for that, Lori. Robin?
Well, I would say that it is true, actually. Sometimes, especially with corn, I have been in a corn crop, and it grows so fast that sometimes you can hear things like leaves unfurling and like that. I was also in an operation that did forced rhubarb production, so that they cover the plants and try to force them earlier in the season. And it was remarkable to me that you could actually hear like pods breaking open in the rhubarb coming from the ground. So I would say it's a fact, maybe not in all crops, but definitely in some.
Rhubarb, very interesting. Robin?
I would agree with what Lori and Trevor said. I think if you are standing in a field, some crops more so than others, you're definitely going to hear them. And in pulse crops, yeah, especially later in the season, you can hear the pods, you can hear different things happening. You can definitely. So I would say it's a fact.
My next myth or fact, Robin, I will kick off with you. Agriculture is a huge polluter.
Oh, great. That's such a that's such a controversial subject. I would say that it's unfair to say a blanket statement that agriculture is a huge polluter. I would say there is industries that are far more polluting than agriculture. Are we absolutely, like, sorry, I'm trying to think of the word right now. Do we pollute? Yes. Yes, we do. But I don't think that we are a huge contributor. I think I might make a comment now is probably a time to say that as industry as a whole, we are not putting anything into the ground that we absolutely don't have to. And there's two things that back this up, and Lori alluded to it earlier, that this land that we're growing, this is our livelihood. Why would we pollute it? Why would we put a single chemical, a single pesticide, anything, fertilizer, anything on that field that's going to hurt it? We do that, we shoot ourselves in the foot, we shut ourselves down. Farming has to be a successful business. So we're not going to put anything down that's going to pollute it or hurt us in any way, because then we will be bankrupt. So we're not going to do that. And I think that's something that is very important for the general public to hear. And the other part of that is this stuff's expensive. The fertilizers we put down, the chemicals we put down, anything that we put down, we are not going to do it unless we absolutely have to, because again, it comes down to our bottom line. So that's why I can, talk about boots on the ground again. We're not going to put pesticides on our field unless we have problematic weeds growing, unless we have diseases threatening to take our crop down. And there's economic levels that we can say, oh, there's a little bit of disease, or there's a lot of disease. So we are very in tune with what we're doing, and we are doing our absolute best to pollute as little as possible for the sake of ourselves and our food, the food we eat ourselves, the environment that we live in. My house is on my farm. So if my husband is spraying the crop, I'm going to be breathing it too. So I'm going to make sure that pesticide isn't going down unless it really needs to. So I could go on and on and on. So I'll stop and let Lori and Trevor have a say.
I appreciate the insight. I mean, you're right there, so you know what's going on. Lori, I think you said earlier, that your family is eating what you produce as well. So you, of course, want to keep them safe. I don't know if you want to add to that, or Trevor, you have anything to add?
I think Robin definitely gave most of the points. The bottom line for us on our farm is, again, the cost. I mean, the cost of fertilizer has more than doubled. And so we are very cognizant of what we put on our land at any given time. Being in the industry for this long, it has been interesting to see the things that we put in place in Canada and probably in North America, things like conservation tillage. When we first were on the farm and stuff, everything was worked a million times and then seeded with different technology. Now we do very little tillage. We add everything back into the soil. We can also do laying fertilizer down with high-tech GPS mapping, so you only put fertilizer where it's needed. We do things like soil testing, so we know how much nutrients we need to put into the soil, so we're not just blanket putting things on that don't need to be there, like Robin said. I think with agriculture being the world's largest industry, I think Canada is doing what we can and definitely becoming more sustainable, more recycling on farm as well. Do I think that everywhere around the world is doing maybe what they could to reduce ag pollution? I don't think we're there yet. I think there's a lot more we can do, but I can guarantee you that farming in Canada is going to continually evolve in this area.
Thank you, Lori. Trevor?
Yeah, I would agree with what Robin and Lori said wholeheartedly. I mean, I've never met a producer in my life that wants to put down more fertilizer or spray more than they absolutely have to. So, the cost is a factor, but there's just, we do what we need to do. And, is agriculture a huge polluter? Well, we are a polluter. I mean, I polluted this morning when I drove to work. It's a cost of production. And, but I think one of the challenges that I have is looking at our industry and some of the where we're represented as an industry that needs to be fixed. And I wholeheartedly believe that's not true. Can we strive for improvement? 100%. And I think, Lori touched on it. If you look back into the 80s and the 90s and 2000s and how far agriculture just in Canada has come, and I know in North America as well. I mean, it's amazing. And I truly do believe that we're the gold standard. If the world were to apply our practices to a certain degree, I think it would be a benefit. So rather than being an offender, or looking as an industry that needs to be fixed, I think it's time we start to brag about what we're doing and educate on what we're doing, and we continuously strive for improvement. And that's just the nature of the producers. They're always looking for better ways.
Thank you so much for that, Trevor. We did get one question from our audience. So Ashley asked, as a farmer, do I really need to grow multiple crops? Is crop rotation really needed? Anyone can feel free to take this one since it was an audience question.
I'm going to step up right away because I was going to follow up really briefly with Lori and Trevor's comments that as farmers, I think we've come a long way as far as understanding what we're doing. Like I said, go back to technology. That's helping us a little bit. But we also rotate. And the more rotation that we do, the more crops that we have in our rotation, the less pesticides we have to use, the less fertilizers we have to use, and things like that. So absolutely, Ashley, rotation is extremely important. And we, unfortunately, on the prairies, especially in Alberta, we're limited to some of the crops we can grow, but we're always looking over the fence to see if we can bring other crops in, because the more crops, the more diversity, the better and the healthier our farms are, the better our bottom dollar is, and the better and more sustainable agriculture is as a whole. So absolutely, multiple crops. And some farmers definitely do that better than others.
Thank you, Robin. Lori, Trevor?
I'm just going to fully support what Robin said. On our farm, our rotations are mapped out years in advance. I mean, we also do pedigreed seeds, so purity is very important to us on our land. But rotating between different crops allows us to use a natural boost to all of our crops. So putting a pulse crop in there can boost our natural nitrogen rates. It also breaks disease cycles. So you have diseases that are specific to barley or specific to wheat or canola, and lengthening the amount of time between those crops allows the soil to recover, break that disease cycle, and requires less inputs from us in the long run. It also gives us a huge marketing advantage as well. So if you have a wide diversity of crops that you are able to sell, you can play different markets, and you never really know what each market's going to do. So it's not putting all your eggs in one basket as well.
Definitely. Trevor?
Yeah, I really don't have much to add. I think Lori and Robin hit the nail on the head. I think rotation is important. We see the end result in the lab as far as, the results of, say, continuous cropping on, with the same crop year over year, and the increase in disease pressure and things like that. Eventually, you have to take that host away, and you have to take it away for a period of time in order to as Lori mentioned and Robin mentioned, break that disease cycle. So just from that standpoint alone, I think it's really important.
Definitely. And that's actually all the time we have. So, huge thank you, Robin, Trevor, and Lori, for joining me this week for Seed Speaks. I really enjoyed learning from all of you, and I really, really enjoyed doing some fun myth busting and being able to share your expertise with our audience. Next week on Seed Speaks, join Mark to learn about the scholarship recipients for Seed World Canada. Thank you again to everyone for joining us, and have a great week.